Today, I'm going to show you the strategy that we have for math. The idea is if you want to do the OC test or the selective test, students have to be really ahead of their school by about 2 years. Now, and that is actually not enough. So if your child is ahead of the school by 2 years, but without the skills in problem solving, your child won't be able to do very well. However, the first thing to do is to make sure your child is ahead of school by 1 year and a half or 2 years, because that gives the basics. Now with the basics, and then your child can actually work on the problem solving, have more time to do that sort of thing. All right, now the strategy that I have for the kids to be ahead of school by 1 year or 2 years is actually quite easy. Now I have a module called Math Lessons. Math lesson has a connect to a service called Math Online. Now, I have an account that connect to that website. It is perfectly okay for you to use my account as a share account. Or if you want to, you can go to Math Online and get a membership. So you will have more control. Now, the philosophy behind my strategy to help students to go really fast is that the student should never have to do things that they already know. So having a way to check and skip all the things that they already know, they can go really fast. And normally, I could get a student who is very smart to be able to do an entire year of school math within 3 months. Now that will free up, so many months for the student to work on problem solving, learning strategy, how to solve problem, and go ahead. All right, so the first thing you need to look at is called the tracking sheet. Now, you see what I have here? For every year, I have a fast pace tracking and I have the normal pace. Now, so let's have a look. Imagine that your child is in year 3. It depends. If your child is really good, probably your child should be working at year 4. But if your child is not really good, you probably want to check the year 3 level. So you would want to go to the tracking sheet called fast pace for year 3. So let's try that. So click on that. Now the tracking sheet is, fast pace tracking sheet has only 1 page. So here you have the strand for the math, so number, pattern, and algebra. And then you have measurement, and then geometry, and then statistics and probability. Now under each of the strand, you have many topics. The idea is that in the fast-paced tracking, your child just goes straight in and do a small test for each of the topic and write down the score. Now, if your child can score 90% or better, then there is no point, going through it. That means your child knows, almost everything about it, right? So you can quickly go through, and anything that your child can score around 90% or better, your child can skip it. There's no need to actually do it. So you quickly identify what a student needs to do. And then whatever left that under 90%, you look at the report that coming from the test. and then you decide whether you should cover some of the topic. So that's actually quite simple. Now, for the students who are not very good, you would use what I call the normal pace. Now, the normal pace tracking you have the strand and have the topic, and under each of the topic you have many lessons. So if a student is not very good, my recommendation is to quickly look up the video for each of the lesson. Watch it for a very short time, let's say about 30 seconds, and then the student will decide whether the lesson is hard enough to be worth watching and doing the exercise. Now, if the student find it not hard at all, and then just skip it, put a point, take a pencil and put a mark next to the lesson, and then move on. Now, so in that way, the student can skip through and avoid doing all the easy stuff. Now, suppose that the student find one of the lesson hard enough, then yeah, just watch the whole video and go on and do a quiz, and then write the score in the space here. Now, if the student can't get 90% on it, wait for another day and try again. Now, once the score gets to 90% or better, you can put a tick right here to indicate that the topic is done. Now, well, obviously, going really fast through, there may be some gap, something that the student doesn't know, but don't worry about that, because once all the lessons have been covered or checked or skipped, the student will go to the topic and do a topic test. Now, the test for the topic will show whether the student actually know everything or not. So if the student can't get 90% or better, then the report from the test will tell what's wrong, and then the student can go into the lesson and watch the video again, and then do the quizzes. So it is a slower, the normal way to go through the whole program. It will take a lot more time, but it's still quite fast. If a student is smart, I expect that the students will be able to go through the entire year within the space of about 6 months. So fast tracking is for the really smart student, and the normal tracking is for the normal student. Now, from my experience, if a student is revising the math at the same year at school, then the fast-paced tracking will work. If the student is trying to go ahead of the school year by 1 year and even 2 years, then you will need to do the normal tracking. All right, so let me demonstrate. So to get into Math Online, you click on Agree. All right, so it will take you into a share account. All right, now you have junior and a secondary. So for most of you, you would use a junior. Now let's imagine that your child is in year 3, and you first join this system. You want to get a very quick check to see whether your child is good enough, to try to go ahead by 1 year. Now, in that case, you go to year 3. Now, one quick way to check is just go straight into the revision task. So you click onto that. Then you got term 1, term 2, term 3, and term 4. I recommend you just go straight to term 4 and get set 8 done. Now, you go in there and you start a question for term 4, set A. Now, suppose that your child scored very well on that, then you know straight away that there is no need to do year 3. And in that case, you would go to year 4. So you go back and then you go to year 4. Now, obviously, in that case, you would want to go to the tracking sheet and you download the tracking sheet for year 4. Now, if your child is in year 3 and you want to get your child to do year 4, you should use the normal pace tracking. So click on that. And then you send the thing to the printer. So you need to get the thing printed out and use it as the tracking. Okay, so suppose that now you decide that your child will go into year 4. So you click on year 4, you have all the strand there, and you are going to use the normal tracking. Okay, so let's look at the first strand. Now here we have all the lessons. Now to save time, this is what you do. So you go into the question, topic, I'm sorry. You go into the topic and you see all the lessons for the topic here. Now with the normal tracking, you're supposed to look at each of the lesson. So you go in here, you click on that. You only need to watch very quickly for about 30 seconds.
Now in this lesson we'll do some work on numbers up to 999. Now this first one here, we're going to use some blocks. We'll call this one a short, which is the number 1. This one here we'll call a long, which has 10 blocks. And this one here we'll refer to as a flat, which one has 100 little blocks. Okay, so we'll call short, long, and flat. You might have heard them as different names, but that's the ones we'll use. Examples. Write the numbers shown by these blocks. Part A, we have a number of flats, a number of longs.
Right, I think that is enough. We actually watch for 39 seconds there. Now at this moment, your child is supposed to ask himself or herself, well, is this too easy? Now if your child thinks it is too easy, it is okay. It is okay to skip the whole lesson. There's no need to do it. Just go to the tracking sheet and put a dot next to the lesson, so your child know that the lesson has been skipped. All right, so and then after that you move to the next lesson and you repeat the same procedure. Watch for about 30 seconds. If it is too easy, just skip it. Okay, let's imagine that your child eventually get into a lesson where it is not too easy. All right, so still you first watch for 30 seconds.
Example 1. We have a number 74,063 and we're asked to name the digit in the tens place. Well, let's consider all of the places firstly, not just the tens.
Now let's pause it. Now suppose that after about 30 seconds and your child think that the lesson is not too easy. Now in that case, the student will watch the entire video and get to the end. And once your child get to the end, your child can go to doing a quiz. So click on that. Now start the question. Now the quiz will have about 10 questions. And so your child will just do the questions and then it will give a score. Now if the score is 90% or better, and then just write the score into the tracking sheet and tick the row as done. Now if the score is under 90%, you would write the score down and then generate a report and have a look and see what's wrong. And then the next time, say the next day, your child will go back and redo the thing. Now, so for example, you start a question. Now, I just pretend, I'm not going to do it. So I just pretend like a child, doing it. So just random picks, I got it wrong. Oh dear. So I got it wrong. Okay, now next, which digit is in the 10,000th place? So yeah, this is number 6. So I click on that, say right. So I got it right. Now next, in the tens place, number 2. So that's still pretty easy. So I got it right. And in the thousand place, so that's a 5. So I just do that. So that's all easy. Which is in the 10th place, so that's number 2. So I do that. And get close. Which is in the thousand place, 1. So got it right. So next, what is a place value of 9 in that number 9? So that is in the 10,000 place, I think. So 9 10,000 place. That's it. I got it right. Okay. So next, number 2 in that. So that's 200. So I got it right. And next one, the 2 in that, which is next question. The 4 in that, so that's 400. So that's right. So I get near to the end. Now I'll just pretend that I make some mistakes, okay? So I just randomly pick something. Oh well. Oh dear. So it actually say that I've got 90%. So the mastery is nearly perfect. Now if your child get 90%, it is okay to consider that lesson is well done. Now suppose that your child get less than 90%, you generate a report. Now then look at the report. You may need to look at the report together with your child and decide what's wrong, and then go back and find a video lesson. And your child will have to watch the video and do the quiz. All right, so that's what it is. Now let's go back to the website. Okay, so that is how a student work quickly through the school math and try to get ahead by 1 year or maybe even 2 years. Now what I have shown you is just the normal tracking. Now once your child gets to the end and get everything done, right, you would expect to see all the topic there, have the topic test done, just like the case of using the fast tracking method, and the score written down, and the score must be 90% or better before your child will tick on the column done for the topic. So yeah, get all the topic across all the strand, all done. Now once all that is done, the next step is to revise. Now how do you do that? When you revise, you go into Math Online. Now you go to the year and you go to weekly revision task. Now even though they say weekly, but I recommend that you don't have to do the thing weekly. You wait until you cover the entire year, and then you go to each of the term. Now when you go to each of the term, you see that there are 8 tests for one term. So a hardworking student might do all of the 8 tests. But I find out that there is no need for that. If the child is really intelligent and want to save the time, just do the set A of each term. So one set for term 1, one set for term 2, set number 8, and so on. So there are 4 terms. Instead of doing 32 tests, your child only needs to do 8 tests. Now if the score get to 90% or better, everything is good. Now if your child can't get to 90%, and then your child needs to generate a report, and then you look through the report to find out what's wrong, and then you can help your child go back to the video lessons and study just the bit that your child need. All right, now so at year 2, I expect students on my website to complete year 3 quickly, so 1 year ahead. So at year 4, I expect the student on my website to cover all year 5 school math right at the beginning of the year. And then all the time left over would be spent on problem solving. Now, one of the question here is do you need to get over year 6? So a year 5 student may be expected to cover the entire year 6 math by the beginning of year 5. Now that is okay. But do you really need to go to year 7 and cover all the year 7 math as well? From my experience, you don't need to do that. Have the foundation at year 6 when the child is in year 5 is okay. And then the student should move on and focus on a problem solving. Oh, by the way, before we go to problem solving, I forgot to mention that you can do what I call update the online fast tracking. So let's imagine for one of the students in year 5, this is what you see. So the student have done all the topic tests and then put the score in. Now you see most of the things are over 90%, so that is good. Now the area and volume is still not 90%, so this student will have to go back and find out what's wrong and do some more study and then do the next topic test. Oh, by the way, if you go back there, you will see that let's have a look at a topic test. Okay, now you go into the strand, you go into the topic. Now the topic test is called the diagnostic test. Now they give you 3 different sizes: short, standard, and comprehensive. Now all I want students to do is to do the short one to save time. However, if the student fail to get 90% the first time, the student may wait for a day, go through the report and study the lessons. So a day or two later, the student come back and do the topic test again. Now, if the first one has been done, the student will move on and do the second one, the standard test. And again, if the student failed to achieve 90% or better, the student can look at the report and learn again, and then one day come back and do the comprehensive test. Now, from my experience, most of the students, if they fail on the short test, they only need to work until they do the standard test. And after that, they should be able to get 90% for the topic. Okay, so that is how you use Math Online to cover the school math quickly and try to be ahead of other students in school by about 1 year or even 2 years. Now, how about problem solving? Now, problem solving is really important because all the tests that students do, whether OC or selective tests, most of the math questions are word problem. So problem solving skill is really important. Okay, so how do we do that? Now go to the home page of my website, then go to the quick links section, and you scroll down for the right level. Now for this student, for example, this student is doing the OC program, so that is the year 4 program. So you go into quick link and you will see many support document. Now here, the first support document that a year 3 student should be looking at is a math problem solving strategy for year 2 to 3. So you open that up, and the document talk about a lot of different strategies and some of the more advanced strategy to do mental math. So you do entirely in your mind, you don't have to write it down. And then I present some strategies that help the student to solve problem better. So make tables and list of items, so make it easy for them to remember what they deal with. And the visual kind of strategy when they draw and try to express the problem in a different way. So this suitable for problem that has a lot to do with fraction. And then I give some miscellaneous like tips on how to deal with some of the funny looking kind of problems. Okay, so that is the problem solving guide for year 2 to 3. Now, the next one is most important, the problem solving strategy for year 4 to 5. Now, this is a very big document. It talks about the 10 strategies that you can use to solve word problems. Now, often you will find out that you need more than one of the strategy. You may need 2 or 3, and you need to combine the strategy together. And that will help you to solve the hard math problem. Okay. I won't go into the detail now, but that's where you find the document, and you will be able to help your child to improve. Now, at this age, the kids are still too young, so they need to have a parent going through these things with them. Now, once they get to the beginning of year 5, they might be old enough to be able to read the document and try to improve on their own. I have a word of caution about fraction. Now, fraction is not easy, and students actually need to have the fraction skill at year 6 to be able to help them do the OC test. So yes, the idea here is that you try to run ahead of school by 1 year or a year and a half. But for some of the areas, you actually need to run ahead of the year by 2 years. So if your child is in year 4 and prepare for the OC test, your child should learn fractions to the level of year 5 and then year 6 as well. So you need to be ahead by 2 years. In that case, to be able to do really well. All right, so for some of the topic, you would want to go ahead by 2 years. Now, we have talked about the basics of school math and how to be ahead of school by 2 years. Now, that is still not enough when you talk about the kind of math in the selective test and in scholarship tests. Now, what I have to offer students is a chance to improve their math to some areas of year 7 and year 8 and really strengthen their problem-solving skills. Now, that is in the Google Advanced Math that I already have the whole program, the strategies, and the video lessons. Now, so you go into more, and you will find that there are available workshops right here. So you click on that. Now, you will find a Google class for advanced year 5 to 6 math. So I call it class number 11. Now, you have the flyer here that you can click and read about it. Right, so, and you have a how-to document, how to use the class. Now, this is not free. If you want access to the workshop, the cost is $200. Now, there are 11 sessions in that, and you have all the video lessons. Now, each of the lessons come with a small workbook that you will print out, and the student will complete a workbook within the session. Now, the design of this workshop is for students to learn over 11 weeks. However, from my experience, it would be useful for the student to take time and learn the whole thing over 15 to 20 weeks. Now that will give the student the time to actually watch so many of the other videos that I put into each of the session. They are not part of the lesson that I provide, but I provide them as the extra resources for students to see how other teachers talk about certain topics. Now, by going through the workshop over 20 weeks, the students have plenty of time to do the work and get to know more, and they should always go back into the Google Class and learn more at their own pace. All right, now, so I'll quickly show you what it looks like. So go to Google Classroom and go to the advanced year 5 and 6 math. Okay, here you have the classwork, and at the beginning there's some document talk about how to prepare, to get started, and part of it is to do what I have just said in the previous section about try to get all year 6 school math covered. Now that's the basis. You need to have all the year 6 math all covered around the beginning of year 5 when you start this thing. So now, and then you go into the lesson in the Google Class. So you have week 1 and week 2 and week 3 and so on. Now the design is that by the time you get to week 5, you cover all the theory. And I want students to start doing a little bit of Singapore year 5 math papers. Now these are equivalent to very advanced year 6 in Australia. And then you move on. Now from week 6 all the way to week 10, I cover all the strategies required for students to solve hard problem. And then week number 11, students are supposed to be on their own. They face with a number of hard problems, and they are supposed to select the strategies and solve them by themselves. Then I get to the post workshop. Now students have access to the end of the year, well, actually all the way to the time of the selective test. And I have some of the year 7 content in there, and then I got the post workshop with Singapore year 6 math papers, which is equivalent to the advanced year 7 in Australia. And so students should do some of these things. Now by achieving a good result at this level, the students are really, really good and should be able to handle all the kind of math that come in the scholarship test or in the selective test.